you. Can everyone hear me okay? Hi, everybody. And yes, welcome to City Lore and a live recording of the Lowdown Culture Cast. I'm Traven Rice. I'm the co-founder of the Lowdown and the arts and culture editor. And we have been covering the Lower East Side, as you just heard, for, gosh, since 2009. So that's over 15 years.
17.
Thank you. Woo. Yeah. We look the same as when we started.
Actually, you do.
And then we started the Lowdown Culture Cast about 3 years ago with the intention to talk to culture changers from all different walks of life and in a broader realm of, I'd say, downtown culture, which can mean a whole bunch of things. And, you know, we've been documenting the neighborhood for quite a while now, but everything is always changing, obviously, and the neighborhood's always changing, and the cultures are always changing. So everyone that we have an opportunity to talk to who has affected or perhaps documented or been a part of culture change, we're always really excited to do that. So I'm going to introduce our guests for you all, but also for those of us who are listening at home and who will watch it later. This is a conversation with Martha Cooper and Clayton Patterson at City Lore, and we are talking about this exhibition called Concrete Chronicles. It's Lower East Side photos by the two of them, and these are two legendary documentarians who are presenting a vivid street-level portrait of downtown New York and have not just downtown New York, all over the place, but have for many years. And I think that there are some interesting overlaps and obviously some differences, but the time period when I feel like you both came and were working in New York initially, downtown, overlapped a bit, was late 70s, right? If that's not, does that sound good? And you were in the similar areas. And I don't know if you knew each other at the time. You can tell us about that. So just a little bit about both of their work, widely celebrated for their deep engagement with the city's streets and subcultures. Martha Cooper and Clayton Patterson have each shaped how the world sees New York. Through distinct yet complementary perspectives, Cooper and Patterson, together with his partner, Elsa Renza, have dedicated their lives to recording the human stories that animate the city's streets. Their photographs capture a neighborhood that became a global symbol of artistic resistance and grassroots resilience. Cooper's attentive, human-centered images of youth culture, street art, hip-hop, cultural traditions, and neighborhood life stand as enduring records of ingenuity and play. Patterson's raw, uncompromising documentation of activism, underground art, and the everyday drama of tenement blocks offers a counter-archive to official histories. Together, their perspectives reveal the LES as a crucible of both community preservation and innovation at the front lines of urban change. That's quite a bit to say, but first of all, I'd like to hear how this exhibition came to be, because I understand that it was Marty's idea a while ago, and then you wanted Clayton to be part of it. Could you share how that happened?
I'm not exactly sure how it happened, but I mean, I did suggest it quite a while ago because I thought that I knew that Clayton had done a lot of documentation on the Lower East Side, and I had this particular collection of street play pictures. But somehow it didn't happen then. But I think Molly, we revisited the idea, and somehow it resonated and worked out this year. So I think Molly was the one that really brought it together.
And Clayton, you were saying it was an honor for you when she reached out. How did that happen?
Well, actually, it was through Molly, but yeah, I was totally surprised because I'm sort of well known for taking pictures and that kind of thing, but really I'm way outside the photo world. So to have somebody as prestigious as Martha, it's kind of a choice between Richard Avedon and Martha. I would take Martha. So it's kind of on that level. But yeah, it was a real honor that kind of a surprise that she would think of me, because her possibilities are endless. And so to be the anointed one. It was a real honor, so I thank her for that. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to say, Clayton is the real deal here. What he has in his photos, I mean, I have nothing at all. Like, he's captured so many different key moments on the Lower East Side.
Yeah.
But I'm not used to this rarefied air that I'm in.
Marty, I want to know a little bit more. What are the things about Clayton's images and the things that he's capturing that really resonate with you and that are striking to you in a way that you recognize?
Well, I live on the Upper West Side. And when I look at Clayton's pictures, I kind of wish that maybe I had lived on the Lower East Side. It just seems like such an exciting place. There's nothing like, I don't have any pictures like this from the Upper West Side. And in fact, I almost have no pictures of the Upper West Side, even though I do love where I live. It just seems like it's a place that I would want to be. That's what resonates.
In the streets, very focused on the streets, and that's where I think there's a lot of overlapping here, is two street photographers who are out in the streets capturing things as they're happening and arising. Clayton, what about you when you think about Marty's images and the pictures? What resonates with you and what you're seeing, especially in this collection here?
Well, I see a lot of things. There's different streams that I could think of. And certainly one of them, art for me, I came from the bad end of the working class, but art for me entered me into a world and into a place where I never thought I would ever get to be. And that's how I got to New York, is through art. And so I've taken front door pictures for like 40 years, which is basically inner city where I am, is mostly Hispanic. And people don't break out of those neighborhoods. And Martha, what she did, which is very impressive to me, is she really gave a life to a lot of people from the inner city. And those people would have never been famous, would have never been recognized, probably would have never been artists if it hadn't been for Martha. And I think that that's a huge contribution. And so when you realize that graffiti had opened up, which is art, had opened up the world to so many people, that really, Martha, I don't think anybody's ever written about this, but somebody should, because she changed a lot of people's lives. And it wasn't really until later that sort of, once you started getting white people involved, and once you started getting into more educated people, and the Shepard Ferries and those other people that did go on and become famous, that wasn't the beginning of that. And so that beginning, so much of that belongs to Martha. And I don't even think graffiti of where it is now, if it hadn't been for Henry Chiffons and Martha with that book, Subway Art, it would have never risen to that position. Most people in the museums and other places like that would have only looked at it as nuisance and sort of delinquency in the city. And Martha really turned it into an art form. And Henry did as well, but I think Martha, and she continues to do it.
Okay, so when you guys were here in New York City getting going in the late 70s, so Marty, I have read that you were working for the New York Post as a photographer.
Right.
Woman photographer.
The first woman
Yeah.
photographer
Yeah, I mean,
on staff,
Yeah,
by the way.
correct.
How was that? Well, I know people always want to know how that was.
It had its ups and downs. But I was lucky because there was a female photo editor, and she was actually responsible for hiring me, so it worked out very well.
Yeah.
And we're still good friends.
And so you would be going to work and you would be driving through the Lower East Side.
I purposely drove through Alphabet City because, well, one of the things we were supposed to be looking for what they called weather pictures. And, you know, if it was raining or snowing or the wind was blowing, they always wanted to have, if they had space in the paper, they would use those pictures. So I found if I drove through Alphabet City, I could almost always find something interesting going on, people out in the street that I could use for these pictures. But unfortunately, they often didn't publish them. Mm-hmm. So when I left the Post, I walked off with all the negatives that they didn't publish. And that's what's basically on that wall.
And so you started by capturing, it looks like a lot of younger youth in the streets playing.
I was particularly looking for kids that were doing something creative. making something, building something, yeah, dancing,
Creating
having
something.
pigeons on their rooftop, yeah.
And then from there, you noticed there were some writing on the wall behind them, literally.
Well, one of the boys, I don't think he's not in this show, but a young boy introduced me to a graffiti writer and said, why don't you take pictures of graffiti?
And that was the
And that
beginning.
yeah, it was.
And I know you both have been able to recognize, as far as people kind of communicating with each other on the streets creatively, what these symbols and what these kind of different, unique ways of communicating with each other mean. It's like their own world, I would say, right?
Well, if we're talking about graffiti.
If we're talking about graffiti, yes.
But, I mean, there really aren't that many examples of graffiti in this show. For example, Chico was a community artist. And I wanted to feature Chico because I really felt like, well, he's moved away from the city now, and I think people may have forgotten about him, but he not only painted walls all over the place, but he painted bodegas and other shops. So the streets were covered with his art. I don't know how many of his paintings are still here.
Yeah.
And so that's something, if all of these paintings lasted forever, I would not be as interested in taking pictures of them. The fact that they're ephemeral and that my photographs can last longer than the art has always been a stimulus for me.
And living cultural heritage is where this overlaps, I would say, with the two of you. How did the door start, Clayton?
A couple things. I'm glad Martha stopped working for the Post. And Chico was really one of the first Rest in Pieces murals, which became, once again, very popular. And the thing with my front door, which I've photographed in front of, like I mentioned, for 40 years, the Lower East Side is very internal. I'm talking mostly about the Hispanic side. And tags were really the language, going back to your question of language on the street. And tags were really the language that got passed around. And there would be wars over that. Some of them would be deadly. And it became a whole culture in and of itself, tagging.
And you saw this happening around you.
Well, my door became, I had two things. I had put 32 pictures in the window which from the front door, which became the Hall of Fame. And then the other one became the Wall of Fame. And the Wall of Fame was the graffiti tags. And I'm sure Martha will understand this. And she has a big love in the Hispanic society. I mean, everywhere she goes, she's like famous. And that's because of her graffiti pictures. But taking those pictures in front of the door introduced me. A lot of them, I had kids starting off at 5. There was an elementary school across the street. And some of them now have grandkids. So it became a whole generational thing. But out of those kids, and because a lot of them were the street kids, a lot of them could be the more dangerous types or whatever. And taking their picture, and I'm sure Martha could talk about this, there was like a love and a connection. All my pictures took place in the street between us. And some of those guys went to jail for 20 years for killing somebody, got out, came back, took another picture. But there was something about that humanity, even those really tough guys, it really touched them deeply.
To be included and to be seen? What was it?
A lot of them, like I was just mentioning, this one kid from 333, his mother had been murdered, his father had been in and out of jail. And a lot of kids were like that, a lot of troubled family, I mean really troubled family. AIDS, across the street they put a little gazebo place where kids were supposed to go there and sort of they could meditate because there were so many people's parents were dying of AIDS in the early 80s. So there was just something about stopping them and giving them attention and giving them respect and then putting them in the window.
And this is on Essex Street.
This was at 161 Essex, and I shouldn't say this, but in public, I shouldn't say this in public. But since a lot of these guys are tough guys, I would go to take a picture, and just before I take the picture, I'd say, "Pussy!" And believe it or not, it still works. So they would laugh, and then I'd have to be ready, and then click, so I'd get them laughing. Because I didn't want to do them with the finger or anything, because then I'm having beefs. One guy's going to be tougher than the other guy. I didn't want that. I wanted sort of community. And so it was such a blessing to have been able to photograph those people for that long that I have years worth of those and they come back now after years and years and years, and I still do front door pictures.
Yeah.
Some of them the same people over many years.
Did they resist it at first at all?
One or two kids wouldn't be part of it, and they would stay in the background, and those who didn't want it wouldn't come up and wouldn't do it. I want to point out something else. These areas where Martha went, South Bronx, the Bronx, these were very dangerous areas. I mean, these places were very dangerous. You go to the Bronx to buy drugs or hookers on the street or something like that. You didn't go up there at night. These are nighttime pictures. But to go there and be wandering around at night to go to a location to take pictures takes a lot of courage. And to leave your car outside, it's that's another really heroic thing about her pictures, is to go to those areas to take those pictures. You look at the pictures, everybody's having fun, it's a nice environment, but it's dangerous out there.
So Marty, how did you navigate that, and what was it about that compelled you even though it didn't feel safe? What was that like starting out when it felt so unsafe? And how did they respond to you?
I always had to calculate, was this picture gonna be worth the risk of possibly having my camera stolen?
And was it ever stolen?
I once had a guy break he yelled at me and had a knife, and I went back to my car, and he came with a rock and he broke the window of the car, and I drove away.
Wow.
So.
Did you go back the next week?
I did go back. Yeah, I mean,
there you go.
This Alphabet City was a dangerous area.
Yeah, it really was.
And so I always was, had one eye looking behind me, but I think I felt that the photos were worth it.
And how did you find that people respond to you?
Well, if somebody told me not to take a picture, I wouldn't take the picture.
Of course.
And that did happen.
Yeah.
And, I tried to talk to people before I took their pictures, but I didn't want to. Sometimes you ruin the shot if you interrupt what's going on. So it's, you just have to feel your way.
Yeah. And do you feel that there are threads that you would say have kind of continued through neighborhoods, or do you just feel that once they change, things have just changed?
I don't see the same kinds of things that I want to photograph today that I used to in New York. I'm looking for them in foreign countries, because I like to be able to walk around a neighborhood. I like to find things and not to exactly know what it is that I'm going to find, but I'm not as surprised in a way that makes me want to take a picture in New York anymore, I would say. But maybe I'm just not going to the right places.
Is that because of gentrification?
Well, possibly, but I mean, I don't go way out to the outer reaches of Brooklyn, for example. I mean, I'm sure there are pockets and neighborhoods where there's more interesting street life that I'm not going to.
How about you, Clayton, as far as the streets here that you've been documenting consistently for...
I pretty much have. I think one of the things I like about Martha's photographs, or especially the kid photographs, it shows you the joy of youth with nothing. Like whether it's a go-kart driving down the streets, or just hanging around the sprinklers, like the fire hydrants. And even though there's nothing there, sometimes, they're jumping off a fire escape and onto a mattress. And those are really ecstatic pictures. Don't have it in here, but the double Dutch dancing and all of those other things. I think that there's a joy that she captures that just eliminates all the poverty, it eliminates the danger, eliminates the drugs, and it just shows you the joy of youth and those kids playing.
And then, it feels like street art itself has really continued to evolve, obviously. It was a lot of graffiti, and then it turned into murals, and then that's really become more and more commercialized, right?
Yes, but there's still a lot of non-commercial work happening.
Yeah.
And illegal work.
And is that what you're still interested in capturing?
I always find the illegal work more interesting.
And is that what you're looking for in other countries now?
I always have my eyes open for that.
Yeah. And how has that changed here, the street art, would you say?
I mean, for me, I've also been involved in tattooing for a long time because I was interested in photographing it, and tattooing was illegal and it was underground. So there's an aesthetic that goes with that. And for me, graffiti is much less interesting now because it's become so sophisticated and people have become so art trained and so good. And that's what happened to tattooing. I don't have that much of an interest anymore in tattooing because tattooing has gotten so good and the equipment they can use so well, and they've improved the equipment so much that people can almost get photographic tattoos. And once it gets to the level of that good, I don't find it that interesting. I find it more like prison tattoos now and stuff like that that's much more raw. And there isn't that much graffiti around that's really raw, because if it is that sort of raw, they think of you as a toy and you don't really get the same respect. And so it's just reached this level of cream. And I liked it better when it was not 2% milk, but whole.
Like more rough around the edges, a little raw.
Yeah, there's an energy that went with the rawness that was, I mean, I feel very blessed that I lived through the last of the wild and free of certainly the Lower East Side. And I think that was a real joy. And I'm sure Martha in the South Bronx and the other places that she photographed, like the Lower East Side.
When you're looking at these now around us in this collection, what are some of the things that you hope people take away from it?
Maybe ask them what they're doing. You know, I would hope that people see some things that they didn't know existed right in this neighborhood. I mean, like the Purple Man Garden there. That's the idea that somebody could make a garden on that amount of land and have it last for quite, I don't know how long it lasted, but a couple of years at least. And he made that garden with manure that he collected from horse carts in Central Park, and he ground up bricks to make the earth and everything. I don't think that could happen now. I don't think there are plots of land that can be, or the little casita. That little casita is still in existence. I passed it the other day. I've forgotten Avenue C, I think.
That's Third Street, right?
Yes, but it has skylight for a roof. But just the idea that you could build a little house in the city, that one has somehow lasted, but I don't think you could get away with that today.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, my sense of kind of the feeling that I get is that what you're both struck by and interested in and sharing with us is something that maybe no one else is going to see. It's something that would easily be overlooked or be hidden in a way.
that's part of it, yeah. Like maybe they would take a look, but we had our cameras out. But now everybody, of course, has a camera, so.
What I'm hoping for is to, at some point, people will look at it and realize that I did capture a period, and I want to save the archive. And the reality is, because a lot of us really inner city, New York and America is really stuck on the famous. And when you get lower down into the infamous or the not so famous, the collections in that really aren't there. And my desperate thing now is to try to save the whole thing as an archive, which I hope I can do. And I hope that I can get people to get interested in the culture that's dissolved and disappeared. And that was the last of the wild and free. And I hope that I'm able to save it because, you know, there's a building and I won't be around and my wife's no longer here. And so it's kind of like, if I'm gone, it's gone.
And we can definitely see that here for sure.
Yeah.
And Martha, what about this other wall? Were there any other reason? What were your reasoning for those, selecting those? Is that the murals and the street art in particular?
Well, you have Keith Haring painting the house and wall, which is about a block away from here. And
Speaking of famous people starting out here.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I see that as being the transition between graffiti and street art, and I think that he really kicked off an art movement with that wall. That I think that regular artists, not with graffiti, when I talk about graffiti, I mean letter graffiti, writing your name with style. But street artists are doing images, or painting images, and I think that Keith, by painting that wall, nobody had ever painted that wall before. It's a freestanding wall. If you look at it today, there's been a box that's built over that wall. You can actually even go inside, there's a door on the end, but inside that box is this original wall, which was just a freestanding wall that was not attached to a building. and he moved a bunch of garbage out from their plastic bags in front, and he painted the wall, and boom, a lot of artists thought, wow, I don't have to go show my pictures to a gallery, I can just go out on the street. I think he inspired a lot of regular artists to paint outdoors,
And
illegally, without permission.
Because that wall is on Elizabeth and Houston. And that meant that every day there was hundreds of people pass that in their cars every day. So everybody saw it. And Keith Haring at that time was also doing the subway chalk drawings on the black blank where they put posters, advertising posters. And he became really famous for that. And at that time when the subways were really dangerous, there was a comfort zone where people felt safe and good to go by sort of playful drawings that were there on the walls. And so there was thousands of people saw that. I mean, in terms of a move, it was brilliant. And he got to be really famous. And then he was, like Martha said, that transition point, because at that time he was going into the gallery Tony Shafrazi, and that wall I think was about 1983.
Yeah.
And so the Soho was just exploding at that time. Wall Street was exploding, the money was downtown, the cocaine was flowing. There was this whole energy that went with it, and the parties and the garage where people went dancing. And so there was a whole level of excitement where the art world had been blue chip, which was 57th Street, Madison Avenue and that. And so Soho opened it up to this whole group of youth that were exploding at that time. And Keith was a leader of that group. And that then, and I would agree with Martha on that, that's a very good point. If anybody's doing stories, that's a keeper. Because that did change the history of art. And so that photograph of that wall was classic.
So I want to take a few minutes and just see if there's anybody that would like to ask a couple questions. Question or two, you're welcome to ask.
Either of you, what did you like to shoot more, black and white or color?
I don't know, it just depended. I think color, because especially with anything art, if you're shooting black and white, you might miss the critical color in the art. You know, color is a better medium for documenting art. So,
I mean, for me, there's always a practical side. I mean, there's always, you have the possibility of doing it. And since I wasn't doing this as a career, I had a 1 hour developing place in Chinatown that was really good. I think it was G&G. It was Lafayette and Hester, I think. And so every time I took in a roll of film, they gave me a roll of film back. And so they were really good at developing, and the negatives were developed really well. And it wasn't like drugstore developing, but it was like high end, but it was a 1 hour photo place. So I got hundreds of them done there, and I'm really blessed to have had that. And so I got this collection of, I guess 3.5 by 5 inch photographs because of that. And so I would say color.
Molly.
It's more of a comment, don't hate me. But it's a question for you both, which is, there are two people I happen to know in this show who you both featured or have a relationship or comment to you specifically on the walls or in the casework. And I wonder if you guys can talk about Jim Power and Anton Van Dolen and how those people have been important to you and important to the neighborhood and why you took an interest in.
Did you say Anton Van Dalen?
yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'll start with Anton in the 3 pictures there, who had a pigeon coop on his roof on Avenue A for many, many, many years. And Anton actually introduced me to Clayton.
Oh, really?
Yes, I don't think you remember that.
That bugger.
Many, many years ago, yeah. But because you were friends with Anton.
I was.
Right? And I met Anton through pigeons. He actually saw a pigeon picture, because I was interested in documenting pigeon flying, and I actually documented it for City Lore. We did a couple of pigeon projects. And I was interested in mostly kids that flew pigeons, but Anton had this, I think it was all white birds.
Right, that's right.
He had high-level pigeons, not street pigeons. And so you can see he raised pigeons. He had baby pigeons. Whoever has seen a baby pigeon, I mean, even though there's so many on the street, it's not as if you see their nests everywhere. So that's what that picture is there. And he was an artist.
And he was a very good artist. And he worked for with a person that was did the New Yorker. What was his name?
Oh, yeah, he
Not
did,
his
he
film,
did
but,
the, it's archive.
Steinberg?
Yeah. Who?
Steinberg?
Steinberg, and
Yeah.
that was really good.
Yes.
And so, and pigeon coops were a culture in New York. And one time he got this pigeon, because pigeons would have bands on. So he saw this band on this pigeon, which was a fancy pigeon. So you're able to contact the person who had the pigeon. And it turned out he had to meet this guy in Brooklyn and go out there. And this guy was, the mafia, a lot of mafia guys had pigeons. So the guy that he gave the pigeon back to a couple of days later ended up dead in a trunk in a car in some, outside some restaurant. But Anton, those transformational drawings that Seth Tabachman is really well known for, let's say the fist turning into a tree and going like that, that was a style that Anton really created. And he was one of the first people that really did that, this transition of one object into another object.
Also, he did stencils on the street.
And
He
he
was
would
one of
get
the first stencil artists.
That's
in New York.
that's exactly right. I was just going to say that. Yeah, the stencils you see on the street, the cutouts. I mean, Jasper Johns did sort of the alphabet spray painted with the stencils, but Anton would do words and activism symbols and put them on the street. And so Anton was actually very famous.
So that's an overlapping connection there. And you said the other one was Jim Powers, right? How about Jim Powers?
Jim Powers is the mosaic man. We have one picture of him putting up a mosaic there, and then one over there. And when you came into City Lure, if you noticed on the front, there's a little City Lure mosaic. Mosaic Man is still active in this neighborhood.
Yeah, actually, when they unveiled that was the beginning of our show, right, Molly? So that was unveiled. And there he is with his dog on that one there, Jesse Jane. And he had the Mosaic Trail, which went all the way up and down St. Mark's.
Yeah.
And he's really memorialized the neighborhood in a big way. And he's lived very impoverished. And he's lived like in furnace rooms. He's slept in squats on the floor. And he's one person, he came out of Vietnam, that really has struggled hard in order to save his art. And he went all out, gave his whole life to that. And I think it's very important in it someday. And you can see there he is with the pole and the American flag. So we also had that whole American veteran thing. And yeah, he was, I honor his dedication to the mosaics.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk about memorializing cultural heritage and the people. It's sort of this constant cycle of people reflecting each other, and you two have been a really big part of that. So I want to say thank you very much for the conversation.
All right, everybody stand up.
And we could chat more, but I think that's it for now.
Really?
I really appreciated talking to you.
God.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Much, Martha.
Thank you very much.